You guys, I just watched Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, and we got a lot to talk about. Now, I loved the first Guardians. From the moment the titles came on, as Star-Lord started dancing, I knew this wasn't going to be like any other Marvel movie. Back then, before Chris Pratt was in every single thing, we saw the kind of film that could be made when an unknown director had full creative control and knew how to restrain himself. I'm looking at you, Taika.
No, that's not it. No, that's not it. No, that's not it.
Flash forward 3 years, and we got Guardians 2. Don't really remember much about it. Oh, right. Yeah. I'll always give it credit for forming Nebula and Gamora's sisterly bond, introducing Mantis, which after watching the Guardians Holiday Special, has become my favorite character in these movies, and giving us this pretty badass scene of Peter Quill. But the humor overall was more hit and miss for me the second time around. Where the first one had more subtle jokes,
I like your knife, I'm keeping it.
That was my favorite knife.
the second one beat us over the head with them. So you can imagine how curious I was to see what Guardians 3 would bring. Would it strike the perfect balance between action, humor, and heart like the first one? Go bigger, but not necessarily better like the second one? Or be something else entirely? After finally watching it, it is unlike anything I could have ever expected. Spoilers, obviously. First, let's examine the characters, starting with the villain, the High Evolutionary. His goal of creating the perfect society is a villain motive I haven't yet seen in a Marvel movie. But while the actor did a great job, his line delivery was a lot. You know this one famous part in Leon the Professional?
Bring me everyone.
What do you mean, everyone?
Now imagine someone yelling like that throughout the entire third act of the movie, and that's pretty much him. But seeing him have no regard for life whatsoever as he tortures and experiments on innocent animals and children pretty much makes him unredeemable. Sure, Thanos wiped away half of the universe, but he did so kind of like a nice grandpa would do it. The High Evolutionary is just pure evil. Also, he looks like an old boss I had once, so that's weird. And one of the biggest mysteries of this movie was how they would handle Quill and Gamora's relationship after what happened in Infinity War and Endgame. There was a funny bit where Gamora kept calling him by the wrong name.
There's a possibility.
I don't think so, Quinn.
Quill.
Quill.
But by the end, it did serve as a character arc for Quill when he finally realized that while this Gamora isn't the one he wants her to be, he has to be okay with who she is. For anyone who's ever gone through a breakup, that's gonna make a whole lot of sense. Groot has some great action moments, and at the end of the movie, when he finally said, "I love you guys," I was like, whoa. The way no one around him reacted tells you that in the movie, he did say, "I am Groot." But now, after being with these characters for so long, we the audience can finally understand him too. It was a pretty clever trick by Gunn, one that I appreciate the more I think about it. Nebula and Drax were great. Even though they did spend like 90% of the movie yelling at each other, it was surprisingly heartwarming to see Drax become a father again to the captured children. Adam Warlock was underused, but was too overpowered to be put in the film any other way. But the main crux of this movie is Rocket. To see him as a little baby version of himself was so stinking cute. Damn it, Disney. Why you always gotta make baby versions of everything and nail it every single time? When we're introduced to Rocket's friends, Lila, Teefs, and Floor, and see how they're all grotesquely disfigured with machinery, rendered so realistically by the best visual effects companies in the business right now, to have them die while trying to escape their cages. Rocket's cries of pain is something that'll stay in my mind forever. And when the High Evolutionary mocks him, I wanted to tear him to pieces. So when Rocket got to do it, it was pretty damn satisfying. These flashbacks, these moments of darkness and despair, are something I didn't see coming from a Guardians of the Galaxy movie. The places this movie goes, the pure heartbreak at hearing Baby Rocket say hurts, sent me into a pit of existential crisis, and I don't think I'll ever recover. Here's a bit of advice. You might want to reconsider watching this movie if you're taking anyone under the age of 10. I'm a grown-ass man, and still felt uncomfortable during some parts. And this feeling bled into other areas of the movie. This isn't your happy-go-lucky Guardian story anymore. There's a part later when a machine pig monster gets decapitated, and when the villain's face gets peeled off and we see his gross, bloody, wet skull. These things were not on my Marvel bingo card. And speaking of unexpected surprises, for the first time ever in the MCU, we hear the F word. I know, calm down. When Quill says it, I was kind of blown away. But when I think about it a little more, I kind of feel like the opportunity was wasted a bit on such a throwaway joke. But imagine this instead. After all the Guardians take their turns kicking the High Evolutionary's ass, what if he's kneeling on the floor with his face half peeled off? Then he looks up at Rocket and asks, "What are you?" Then, as the Guardians theme builds to a climax, he could have said, "We're the f***ing Guardians of the Galaxy." Remember in the second one?
Welcome to the frickin' Guardians of the Galaxy. Only he didn't use frickin'.
This would have been a nice way to show the audience that by the end of this movie, we've all matured enough to finally be able to use that word. I'm not a writer. They're all having a strike right now. Stay strong, guys. But I think this change might have been a good full circle moment for Rocket, the Guardians as a team, and the trilogy itself. Sure, it might have come off a little corny, but in my opinion, it could have worked. But I do welcome more F-bombs in the MCU. Deadpool 3, please be good. And while scenes played out fine on their own, when stitched together to make a cohesive plot, the movie kind of felt messy at times. One moment we see the traumatizing deaths of cute woodland creatures, then the next we're expected to laugh at Drax knocking this guy off a motorcycle. The shifting of tones in this movie definitely stuck out to me, and the transitions between scenes could have been refined. It might have been less noticeable if this time around, Gunn didn't force a new song in every 5 minutes. At least that's what it felt like. Don't get me wrong, having the film open to Creep by Radiohead was the perfect move. But then going from that somber start of Quill being an alcoholic to the wild guitar strumming of Crazy on You by Heart as Adam Warlock flies through space was just a little jarring. In the first movie, the songs were used in a much more subtle way. Redbone's Come and Get Your Love playing after Peter clicks on his Walkman, Bowie's Moon Age Daydream playing in the distance as the Milano flies over nowhere, and who could forget Hooked on a Feeling. I know this might be subjective, but the way songs came on at various points throughout Guardians 3 felt a little less organic and more like at this point, Gunn's just expected to put in songs because we all know that's what he does. But the one time the song choice fit perfectly with what was happening on screen was Beastie Boys' No Sleep Till Brooklyn during the best part of the movie. No, not that. This. Forget Old Boy, forget Daredevil, forget Rogue One, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 has the definitive hallway fight scene. Remember in my Endgame video when I kept gushing over the one long shot of every Avenger fighting? This hallway scene is like that times 1,000, and it doesn't just pass by, it goes on for quite a while. You can tell. This fight scene was crafted by people who love the characters and the material, and creative enough to bring it to life on screen. It's something that I honestly haven't seen in all of Phase 4, and it will go down as the most badass fight scene, not just for Marvel, but for movies, period. So after finishing the film and working out my thoughts in this review, I'll say this: Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 changed my life. It showed me things I never would have expected to see or hear in a Marvel movie, but it also tied everything together, sometimes in a messy way, with enough heart and soul. And while it didn't necessarily feel similar to either of the first two Guardians movies, this time being more grim, gory, and glum, it still managed to be a fitting end to the trilogy. After Marvel's recent run of letdowns, the Guardians franchise closes out beautifully. Anyway, thank you for listening to me ramble. Hey, subscribe if you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next video.